How's it going, guys? It's Richard, and I wanted to do sort of a bit of a discussion thing today. I know those are normally the sort of things you get in a podcast when you've got like two or more people, but I don't know anyone. I'm friendless. So I'm just going to have a little bit of a discussion with myself about sort of various things in the game, future of the game, and all that. The little clip in the background is basically just me just doing some Slayer and not really finding the best spot to put my can in, and yeah, it's just me killing some hellhounds, getting some Slayer XP in the final little chance I have before the EOC changes. So everything to do with combat will change. I don't know how the dwarf multi-cannon actually works in the beta, because I didn't have one when I imported my save, but it'd be interesting to see when it's finally released. You know, it might be powerful. I don't even know if it's in the game, to be honest. But anyway, on to the discussion. I wanted to talk about the future of RuneScape and what sort of various updates this year have entailed and all that sort of stuff. Now, the first thing I wanted to mention was how they talked about how they employed another, was it 150 or 180 or something members of staff like 18 months ago, whenever it was, and how that's why they introduced the things like the Solomon's General Store and the Squeal of Fortune, so they could use that money to obviously pay those members of staff and get better game content out. And back then, when they first said that figure, I sort of thought, oh, okay, so maybe we're going to have like sort of a year of having like basically no decent updates, and then it'll change and things will improve and we'll start actually getting some decent updates coming out. But I'm not seeing it like that. Like basically the last few months, there hasn't really been much in the way of actual content. A lot of it's just been reworks, which maybe some of it was due. For example, the update to the TheScapeQuest was pretty necessary because it was sort of like a double click thing, wasn't it? Double chat, like chat to him once, have bought the items off the GE, then chat to him again and you're done. But it wasn't any new content. It's not the sort of thing that it comes out and then you play it and then you can actually go back and do it again and like have a good time with it. I mean, there was the whole Doric and Boric's task thing. That was actually pretty nice, getting a little bit of bonus XP, but it was still, I thought, was a little bit, you know, it's not really the content I feel like we deserve, having to put up with these updates that they've had lately with the Squeal of Fortune and everything, which they claim isn't selling GP or selling XP, but that's what it is. No one's going to buy the spins for any other reason. They're not doing it because they actually enjoy using the Squeal of Fortune. I don't know what their logic is there, but, you know, that's Jagex for you. That's the way they go. But, so, the future of RuneScape. So, we've actually heard quite a lot of interesting things over the last few weeks, like things about lore and like the 2013, what it's going to bring to RuneScape. And they were saying like this new Grandmaster quest, which I'm personally really quite excited about because it's the sort of thing that I like doing. I'm actually one of the few people that enjoy the lore, and I actually kind of enjoy quests, and it's a good laugh, I think. Yes, like Rich of the Majorat, or however you say it, like Majorat. I just don't know how you pronounce it, was actually kind of a lot of fun. And while Gothic sleeps, I spent weeks and weeks building up the skills and the quest to do that quest, and then I genuinely really enjoyed it, which is how a quest should be. I think a lot of people actually enjoyed that quest, which is quite a change. I think people in general enjoy the Grandmaster quests and things like Nomad, where it was actually, in terms of the actual quest content, was kind of easy, but then the boss fight, so it was over quickly if you're good at combat, and that kind of kept the game fun. It was a lot more interesting than the usual sort of thing we have to do in RuneScape. So Grandmaster Quest coming out would be pretty awesome. They're building it up to be literally the best Grandmaster Quest that has ever been released. They're saying that this is genuinely like going to be the mother of the Grandmasters. It's either going to have like ridiculous requirements, or be ridiculously hard, or just genuinely be a lot of fun and insane. So that'll be interesting. So that's one thing that's coming next year. And another thing is that they're saying they're actually changing the game year forward. So if you don't know, ever since RuneScape's release, it's been set in sort of the 5th age, and the year is 169 or something, and that's always what the game has been in. And now they're saying they're actually moving the game year forward. But I mean, there's a lot of plot holes with that whole system that it's the year 169. For example, in the what's the name of the quest series, like the Sea Slug quest, Kenneth ages about 20 years in that period of time. So basically, in 1 year, he's aged probably from being a small child to an adult. So that doesn't entirely fit. But yeah, anyway, what you're going to do about that sort of thing, that's the sort of thing you have to deal with when there are so many different quest lines and everything. And then they're bringing in like massive things to do with the gods, which I think is going to be really kind of like people that actually like are interested in all the gods and everything, like Zaros. So that maybe means that we get more in the way of quests like Temple at Sentiston, which was another actually quite a fun quest that was challenging, a lot of like prior requirements that I guess a lot of people enjoyed. But I mean, besides the fact there wasn't really a big boss fight in that one, unless you count, was it the Icy Troll or something, which everyone gets like, I get that like every other kill in the Dominion Tower, but that was another fun quest. But anyway, I'm talking more about the past of RuneScape than the actual future right now. But the future is the like obviously what the topic of this commentary is, and I genuinely think it's going to be really interesting. Like they're talking so much about the change in lore, and with the evolution of combat coming out, I know a lot of people don't really like it, but after the live stream that they had the other day, it sounds like it could actually be a lot of fun, and that it's not going to be as terrible as we think, and that they're making a lot of changes to it, and it's going to be a lot more fun. And I genuinely think that it's going to make quite a nice change. And so with that, they're going to be able to release a lot more content. Like, for example, the Grandmaster quest that they're talking about, they're saying is going to release abilities along with it, which I don't know if that's going to overpower the combat system a little bit. For example, like things like Turmoil, like you basically have to do the template Centistan and have 95 prayer if you want to be in a top end group for if you're meleeing some kind of boss or something, because Turmoil is just like almost essential for high end melee combat at the moment. I mean, it's getting down powered in the evolution of combat, but I can guarantee it will still dominate quite a lot. So that's another thing that will be quite interesting to see how that turns out, because I wouldn't like to see abilities that like you require to have done that to sort of get effective combat. And there's another thing like Korasi's sword, because they're removing the special attack, they had to make the weapon a lot better, and it's better than the Abyssal Whipvine. I assume not better than the Rapier, but with that it means that like a lot of people are going to almost like require to do the quest, which I don't know whether it's a good or a bad thing, because on one hand you could say that like it encourages people to do all of the game content, but at another point in time that's one of the great selling points of RuneScape, is that you didn't have to do like all of the content and everything to get the most out of it. I've got a friend that he's actually a really high combat level, but he's got like level 11 hunter and things. He doesn't really do much else in the game because you know he enjoys combat, and that's fair enough really. That's one of the great benefits of the game. So that's another interesting thing. Now, one massive thing. There's been several leaks about this. Like ModMMG was the first one to accidentally leak it in the first live stream, or it might have been the second live stream. That's RuneScape 3. Now that sounds actually, it sounds like it's going to be pretty insane. I don't know if it's probably going to end up being a lot more like WoW and all the other MMOs, because that's just the direction the games almost have to take these days. I know people say that RuneScape's selling point is its like one-click ability, but at the same time, I don't think it's bringing much in the way of new members, because it's not that appealing. Like if you ever see someone playing RuneScape, like you see someone fishing, or they're doing Herbal or whatever. If you see someone doing that, you're not going to think, "Oh, that looks fun." It's not. You're not going to think that. You're not going to want to get involved in that. It does look boring, and it's not until you start playing it that you really understand and you get into it and everything, and understand that the grind nature of the game is almost part of the system. So whether or not they keep that will be quite interesting. But I don't know whether the big change, because I wasn't around in RS Classic. I started in 2005, and if I'm right in saying the change from Classic to Standard was it 2002? Sometime in 2002. And that apparently that actually induced a lot of raging. Like a lot of people didn't like the change from RS Classic to RS2. And then you look back and you think, well, RS2 is so much better than Classic. So it's the same thing, like the HP bars update. Like when they times the HP bars by 10, there was so much raging, and then you look back and you think, what were we thinking? What was wrong with that? It's an extra 0 on the end, and like the graphics on the HP bars, they look a lot better now than they used to. They were literally just a rectangle, and quite often the whole bar will be red and they're still alive, and that's the sort of thing that they've like. Looking back, you think, why did we complain about the change? It's clearly a lot better. And I'm going to predict that we're going to say that about the evolution of combat come Christmas time, because we will have got used to it and we will like be actually kind of enjoying it. Or on the other hand, everyone will hate it and they'll have to revert back. But momentum is going to be something that I'm going to predict that pretty much everyone's going to use, because people don't want to stand there for ages messing about with abilities. Obviously, if they're on a boss, that's fair enough, because they probably will focus on that. But momentum it makes life so much easier. And with Chris L saying that it's going to now have, like, you're going to now select a basic ability every 20 seconds, I think he said it was. Like, if you do that every 20 seconds, then that's actually kind of a lot more powerful than it was before. Obviously, you don't get your ultimates and everything, but it is an ultimate in itself, because your basic auto attack is a lot more powerful. So I'm going to predict that I'd say 90% of combat is going to be done using momentum. But at the same time, you're still going to have to like build everything up, and the whole gear system is going to be quite different. So that'll be something that's interesting. And that's another thing that's going to be that I'm going to talk about in the sort of the future of RuneScape, and that is the equipment. Now, with wands being a lot more powerful, there's going to be things like Barrows is going to be worth a lot more. Like if you're doing Barrows runs now, then keep your stuff, because come the evolution of combat, like if you like the armor, as you can see, is actually pretty powerful. And like things like Aram's wand, which is a new thing that we're releasing, and the Virtus wand, as well as a Virtus, is it a Virtus shield or something, is essentially like your mage equipment, and it's going to be really powerful. So that'll be another thing that's going to be pretty decent and interesting. Now, one final thing that I want to talk about, I know I've rambled on a lot, so I've jumped back and forwards between subjects, but this is me just sort of like flowing some information. But one thing I want to talk about is the future. I've actually completely forgotten what I was going to talk about. Oh yeah, the future of bosses. Because with the whole protection prez not protecting 100% damage, then surely they're going to have to take that into account, because people aren't going to be able to just like go to a boss room and just like get these ridiculous amounts of damage. Like for example, Jad. I know protection prayers in the evolution of combat do entirely protect against Jad, but imagine if it only reduces 50%. You could easily take 400 hits, and that is, although I suppose with the evolution of combat 400 is not that much, but obviously it's going to be up a lot more in fitting with the increased life points and all that. And so bosses are going to be an interesting change, so that's one thing that you never know how that's going to turn out, and well, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. And things like armor, although Bandos, apparently, for people that are worrying about their Bandos, Mod Chris L has said that they're buffing Bando's armor quite considerably, which is pretty good, because it was like basically exactly the same as Barrows, which I know it's similar levels, but Bandos is so much rarer. I don't know if it's maybe just because it's like Barrows has been around in the game for a lot longer, but you know, it's the sort of thing. Anyway, I guess we'll just see as it unfolds. So thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I'll see you all in the next video.